The first thing I remember is the sound. The sound of men screaming, of iron clashing, of arrows falling like rain so thick they blocked the sun. Mount Jupel was supposed to be our shield, the ground where General Yan swore we would humble the Tang Emperor's arrogance. We were 150,000 strong. Farmers turned soldiers, veterans of border wars. Young men like me and my brother, too eager to prove ourselves. Across the field, 200,000 of Tang Taizong's warriors waited, banners like a forest swaying in the wind. My brother's hand shook when he tightened the straps of his armor, but he smiled at me as if he weren't afraid. I tried to smile back, though my stomach churned. The first clash went in our favor. Goguryeo shields locked. Our spears drove back the Tang front, and the mountain echoed with cheers. But then came the legion we hadn't seen. Out of the trees behind us, like wolves circling sheep, another wave of Tang soldiers crashed into our rear. The mountain that felt like a fortress turned into a trap. Men screamed as they were cut down from behind. Horses trampled over their own riders. I saw men I had trained with for months fall, without raising their blades. Panic spread like fire. My brother fought through the chaos, trying to rally a retreat line. He clutched a scroll with Yan's order to withdraw, swearing he'd deliver it before the slaughter consumed us. He never made it. An arrow struck him square in the chest. For a moment, time froze. His mouth opened like he was trying to say my name, but only blood spilled out. I caught him before he fell. My arms shook as I tried to hold him upright, to pretend he was still alive, but his eyes rolled back. The scroll slipped from his hands into the mud. I don't remember how long I knelt there. The battlefield blurred into noise, smoke, and blood, but all I saw was him. My brother, the only family I had left. I carried his body through the chaos, stumbling, not caring if I lived. Every step was heavier, and when I finally laid him down by the retreating men, I felt as if my own life had ended. When General Yan returned to his fortress, his face was carved from stone. His voice was ice as he named the man responsible for our humiliation, Commander Yang of Ani. A traitor, Yan spat, accusing him of refusing to aid us, of condemning Jupel to slaughter. He betrayed his brothers and left us to die. I wanted to scream that the only betrayal I knew was the arrow that killed my brother, but I said nothing. Yan's fury became my command. He looked me in the eye, saw my grief, and handed me a mission: infiltrate Ani Fortress and kill Commander Yang. I should have refused. I should have asked why we were tearing each other apart when the Tang were at our gates. But all I could think of was my brother's body cooling in my arms. I bowed my head and accepted. If this was the path to vengeance, then I would walk it. I left Mount Jupel with my brother's blood under my nails and one name in my head: Yang of Ani. Yan sent 2 riders to guide me, men who joked about killing like weather. We wore plain armor, passing as scattered levies. Every mile north felt like walking a knife, revenge on one side, orders on the other. 2 days from Ani, the road dropped to a shallow stream. A small troop came from the far bank. No banners, a man in a straw hat at their center. My companions stiffened. Yang! One breathed and kicked his horse forward. I grabbed for his reins and missed. The straw hat tipped, a hand rose, and 3 riders slid out, neat as a drill. Our charge shattered. One companion went down under hooves. The other reached for a bow. A lance pinned his wrist, and a quick cut sent him into the water. I raised empty hands because I wanted to live long enough to remember my brother's face. The man in the hat drew up. Name. Samul, I said. From Jupel. He studied me like a smith judges a cracked blade. Ride with us. They bound my wrists, firm, not cruel, and turned toward Ani. The fortress rose from the fields, a cliff of stone. People lined the road when the straw had appeared. Nods, millet bowls, children running. No trumpets, only a long breath. In the yard, I learned the rider beside me was Yang. In the command hall, he asked for my story. I offered pieces. We were surrounded. I carried my brother. I wanted to fight somewhere that still held. I hid Yan's order. His officers watched like hawks. Yang watched like a farmer deciding if a bent tool could be straightened. "You'll serve?" he asked. "Yes," I said, surprised how easily. He pointed not to spears, but to a folded banner. Ani's standard. Carry it on the east wall at first watch tomorrow. If you're a coward, you'll run. If you're a spy, you'll signal. Either way, we learn. I slept in a store with my wrists unbound and the banner pulled across my knees. I should have planned murder. Instead, I listened to Fortress breathe. A hammer on iron, a baby crying, a gate chain settling. Ani felt less like a post in a village wearing armor. At dawn, horns called us to the parapets. Tang scouts, a thread of riders, came to test the gate with arrows and jeers. I planted the standard into stone. The claw snapped, tugging. I wanted to duck. I didn't. Yang walked the line in plain armor, the same to every tower. Steady. Loose. Breathe. An arrow shaved my cheek. Warmth ran down. The mass thrummed like a heartbeat. What kept me there wasn't courage so much as grief, with nowhere else to go. The scouts withdrew. The wall exhaled. Yang stopped beside me, eyes taking the blood, and my hands white on the wood. He gave a single nod. Keep the standard, he said. It suits you. He turned away, ordering repair to a crack crenelling grain for a widow on the south slope. It would be easy to hate a man made of vanity. Harder to hate a man made of duty. Under Ani's flag, my mission became a question. Kill the fortress's heart, or keep it beating long enough to save a country it holds together. Life inside Ani Fortress was nothing like I expected. Yan had painted Yang as a coward hiding behind stone, a traitor deaf to his comrades' cries at Jupel. But every corner of Ani told me the opposite. The fortress wasn't just walls. It was people, and those people looked at Yang as if he were the mortar holding them together. I saw it the first morning after my test on the wall. Yang didn't sit in a hall feasting with officers while the rest worked. He walked the streets with his sleeves rolled up, stopping when a farmer offered him a gourd of water, kneeling to greet a child born just last night. I followed at a distance, pretending it was to learn his routines, but in truth, I couldn't look away. He congratulated a mother who cradled her baby, promised her husband would serve lighter duty until she healed. Later, he carried grain sacks beside soldiers, his hands as callous as theirs. In the evenings, Ani opened its gates just enough for the poor to gather, and Yang oversaw the kitchens himself. Stew ladled into chip bowls, millet pressed into hungry palms. No speeches, no ceremony. I caught myself wondering if Yang had ever touched the hand of a starving man. And then there were the nights. Lanterns swayed over the courtyard where Yang trained recruits long past curfew, drilling them until their feet bled, only to kneel beside them after, wrapping bandages himself. The wall stands only if each stone holds, he told them. His voice carried, and I felt it even though I wasn't meant to. Each day, I told myself tonight I'll slip the knife between his ribs. I'd rehearse in my mind, the way I'd stumble close, the way I'd twist before he cried out. But when the moment came, when Yang leaned down to adjust a soldier's grip or bent to comfort a widow, my hands wouldn't move. The people of Ani called him the fortress made flesh. To them, Yang wasn't a man who failed at Jupel. He was the reason they woke each day believing Ani could hold. And I hated that part of me agreed. Still, at night, when I closed my eyes, I saw my brother's face, his blood still warm on my arms, his voice cut short by an arrow. That memory screamed Yang's orders into my skull. Traitor, assassin, vengeance. But by dawn, Yang's voice would erase it with a simple command or a weary smile, and the two truths wrestled inside me until I could no longer tell which was real. One evening, I lingered at the training ground long after the others left. Yang noticed me watching, his brow lifting. "You fight like a man carrying ghosts," he said softly. My throat clenched. If only he knew. I wanted to answer, to confess, but the words died. So I bowed and walked away with the weight of 2 lives pressing on my chest. My brother's death demanding revenge, and Ani's life demanding I protect the very man I was sent to kill. Taizong came like weather, first a smudge, then a storm that blotted out the earth. From Ani's wall I counted banners until numbers stopped meaning anything. Drums rolled in waves, and the ground trembled as if the Emperor himself were knocking at our gate. 5,000 of U.S. stood on stone, 200,000 of them unfurled below. Yang said only, "Breathe." He walked the parapet in a plain helmet, touching shoulders, fixing grips, moving a frightened boy 2 steps left so a veteran could anchor him. I took my post with the standard on the east wall, my palms slick, my mouth tasting iron. The first stones came humming, great, patient monsters arcing slow enough to see and too fast to escape. They smashed merlins to powder, and tore gaps men scrambled to fill with planks and prayer. Ladders followed like crooked ribs pushed up from a sea of helmets. As they clattered, our crossbows answered in clipped rhythm. I aimed, loosed, aimed again until the line blurred. Still they climbed. A ram rolled toward the south gate, brass-plated and sheathed against fire. Drums pounded. The ram's face kissed the wood. The gate shivered. Again, the shiver became a splinter a crack. Men pressing, mouths open as if drowning on land. Far beyond, Taizong's pavilion sat serene as a temple. Yang raised a flag and the fortress changed shape. Trapdoors yawned, pots tipped. Boiling brine fell like winter rain, turning ladders to thrashing eels. Weighted beams swung and swept 3 ladders clean. From a sally door near the south tower, a thin stream of cavalry burst like a needle through cloth, striking the ram's escort before vanishing behind stone. The ram faltered. A hidden ditch swallowed one wheel. Fire arrows found the sheathing. Smoke leapt. Men scattered. They came again. Engineers dragged fresh ladders. Archers crept closer, their arrows stitching black into our banner. A stone pulverized a krenel to my right. The standard jumped. I wrapped my arms around the pole and tasted grit. Hold. Yang called, voice level like instructing a farmer. He moved like a conductor, drawing order from panic. Here a volley, there a water cart, there a brace hammered into a buckling brace. Near dusk the wind shifted and carried the Tang's fear to us. Their dead made hills at our walls, officers shouting too loud to clothe their doubt. I saw a standard fall below and not rise. The battering slowed. The ladders thinned. On the far ridge the pavilion stirred, then turned away like a cloud deciding not to rain. Silence didn't fall so much as arrive. Unbelieving, we stood staring across a field we had not surrendered. I looked at my shaking hands, and knew they were not shaking from fear alone. We had held. Against numbers that turned men into grain, we had held. Yang passed me in the dim. He did not cheer. He pointed to a break and said, "Stone there by moonrise." He pointed to a corpse and said, "Name him." He pointed to my blood-blackened cheek and said, "Wash, then eat." You carry the flag at dawn. Only once, on the inner stair, did he pause to face the retreating camps. His voice lowered. "He'll be back," he said, "and he'll be angrier." Taizong did not lick his wounds long. His banners returned within a fortnight, this time blotting out the horizon with towers taller than Ani's walls. Siege towers, monstrous wooden beasts clad in wet hide so flames slid off their flanks. Their wheels creaked like trees breaking. To the men beside me, the sight alone bent spines. I spent those nights caught between 2 wars, one outside Ani's walls and one inside my chest. Yang's order itched like a hidden scar. Kill Yang. Avenge Jupel. But each day, Yang made treason harder to believe. He spoke to fortress like a man pleading with his own body, touching stone as if it were skin, tending men as if they were bones. I could not square this figure with the villain Yan had named. One night, with the towers rising, I found courage not for murder, but for words. "Why didn't you march to Jupel?" I asked him in the courtyard. My voice cracked like a boy's. His face, usually carved from patience, tightened. Yan chose open battle against 200,000. Ani could not march without falling too. If I had gone, Ani would already be ash. And then, who would hold the gate when Taizong came? Who would protect the field behind us? It wasn't defiance in his tone, it was grief. As if he had stood where Yan stood, made the crueler choice, and would carry it forever. Before I could answer, horns split the air. The towers were rolling. They came in a line that shadowed our walls. Bridges crashed down, spitting men across like ants onto a sugar jar. Stones shattered beneath their wheels, and our arrows snapped against their hides. The first Tang soldier landed on the parapet beside me. Blade high, I killed him before I could think, his body pitching back into the mass. The wall became a storm. Men screaming, smoke smothering, ladders still hammering, while bridges poured endless ranks onto us. I lost my grip on the banner and fought with bare hands, pushing, biting, stabbing with broken shafts. Somewhere down the line, Yang's voice rang. Cut the beast's knees. I turned and saw him, bleeding from a slash across his side, dragging himself up a tower's bridge. His men hacked at the wheel frames, while fire crews hurled pots into joints where the hides had slipped. The tower groaned. Flames found air. The bridge folded, throwing Tang's soldiers like sparks. But Yang fell with them. He hit the wall's edge and vanished in the smoke. Without thinking, I ran. I leapt into the chaos, shoving, clawing, until I found him half buried under a corpse. His armor split, blood bubbling at his lips. Arrows screamed past us, one nicking my ear, but I bent low and dragged him back toward the gate. He coughed once, eyes locking on mine. For a heartbeat I expected suspicion, or the naming of my betrayal. Instead he rasped, "Stand them steady." I carried him to the surgeons while the towers burned. He lived barely, and though I never spoke it aloud, I knew the moment I hauled his body from death, I had crossed the line. I was no longer Yan's assassin. I was Ani's defender. Taizong withdrew again, but not in defeat. From a wall, I saw him pointing, directing, his gaze set on something larger than towers. Word spread of his next plan. Not ladders, not rams, but a mountain of dirt itself, raised by thousands of hands, a mound that would smother Ani stone by stone. We dug like moles because stone alone wouldn't save us. Yang called the miners to the chapel and laid out a plan that felt like a prayer with a blade hidden in it. Tunnel beneath the Emperor's growing mound. Leave it standing on timber ribs. And, when his assault came, chop the ribs and let earth drown his own men. The miners nodded as if he'd asked them to fix a roof. Everyone knew it meant dying under there if the dirt ran faster than their feet. While they dug, Poso found me. He was the kind of man who moved through a crowd like wind through grass, a captain of shadows. "The Emperor inspects the mound at dusk," he said. "We go tonight. 6 of us. You carry the bow." His eyes flicked to the standard strapped to my back, then to the knife I still hadn't used on Yang. He said nothing about it, which somehow said everything. We went in servant blues, carrying baskets. The camp around the mound was a city, braziers, tents, 1,000 shovels chewing earth. When the sun slid low, a ripple ran through the ranks. Taizong emerged, his horse white, his armor quiet as water. He rode close enough I could see the calm in his face. Poso lifted a hand. We drifted toward a stack of timbers, our bows hidden under reeds. Then the signal changed. I had been told to loose on the 3rd drum. A lantern swung from a cart. 1, 2, then a stutter, 3.5, 4. Poso froze. The nearest guard was already watching us, not with surprise but recognition. "Now!" Poso hissed, and we fired anyway. Arrows leapt. Ours found helmets and shoulders. The Emperor's head turned, not ducking, just turning like a man noting rain. Horns split the camp. Soldiers poured from the dark, as if they'd been waiting in place. We tried to melt back into laborers, but the net drew tight in a breath. Poso dragged me behind a timber stack and took an arrow through the thigh that would have dropped most men. He snapped the shaft, shoved me toward the ditch. "Mo," he said, teeth blood slick. "Inside Ani." He gripped my wrist so hard I felt bones grind. They knew the drums. "Don't die here, boy." We didn't escape together. I made the ditch. He didn't. I saw him fall under a ring of shields, fighting like a man trying to buy an extra heartbeat for someone far away. I crawled until my nails tore and came up under night, miles from the camp, alone. By dawn I was back on the wall, filthy and shaking. Yang listened without interruption, his jaw tightening when I said, "Mo." He sent runners to lock gates, check rosters, turn out the stores. The name I expected him to say was Yan. The name, he said, was no one allowed past the reliquary without my hand on the key. We didn't have to search. She came to us, the clairvoyant. She had stood on a hill above Jupel and said the gods had already mourned us, walked into the hall like a penitent. She knelt, palms up, eyes red. "I told them," she said, voice breaking. "I sent the timings, the marks." They promised they would spare Ani if we opened the gate when the mound touched the wall. I saw it. I saw the fields burning if we refused. She turned to Yang as if he were a judge and a father at once. Please, surrender. Save the children. You can rebuild if you live. Something in me broke, like dry wood. I saw my brother in the mud at Jupil. I saw posts on their shields. I didn't hear Yang's answer, because I was already moving. My knife cleared my belt by itself. She looked up just once, and in that look was terror and some terrible kind of love for us all, and then my hand was doing what my grief had come here to do. Silence fell like snow. I expected shackles. Instead, Yang stepped between me and the guards, eyes on the floor where blood met flagstones. There will be no more bargains, he said hoarsely. We hold, or we die. Becca found me outside. She was Poso's sister, a bowstring scar on her cheek, laughed like a bright gate clang. There was no laugh now. He told me to stay on the wall. She said, each word iron. You were there. I nodded once. Her face went still. Then I will go where he went. I thought she meant to take his shift. At dawn, she saddled a gray and rode straight out of the Sally Gate. Without asking leave, a single arrow knocked. She aimed not at a soldier, but at the Emperor himself. The camp woke screaming. Arrows through a hard rain. She got within 20 horse lengths, close enough that Taizong lifted his hand toward the sun, and then the gray folded and Becca with it. She never reached the dust. That night Ani fell hollowed. The miners sang underground to keep time with their hammers. On the wall, Yang said, We cannot wait for miracles. I heard my own voice answer, Then we make one. I asked for a horse, a cloak, and the password for our own pickets. I'll ride to Yan, I said. The name tasted like bile. He has men still. He will send them if I stand in front of him breathing. Yang studied me as if weighing 2 roads. You may not come back, he said. I know, I said, but someone has to ask. He nodded, slow and final. Go. We will hold until the earth moves. The mound rose like a false mountain, blotting out sunrise. Every day it crept higher, closer, carried on the backs of thousands of Tang laborers, guarded by a ring of steel. To look at it from Ani's wall was to feel the weight of earth pressing already on your chest. Men muttered that no fortress could stand against a mountain dragged to its gates. But below that mound, our miners dug like shadows, carving ribs of timber that held the whole thing upright. Every strike of their picks was a heartbeat wagered against time. I rode through enemy country under cover of storm, the rain washing Tang patrols from the roads. Yan received me in his chamber as though I were a ghost, his eyes sharpening when I said, Ani stands. His jaw flexed when I spoke Yang's name. I begged for reinforcements, for supplies, for any shred of help. Yang isn't a traitor, I said at last, my voice raw. Without him, Ani would already be ash. Yan's gaze hardened. So he has turned you, too, he said. I will not throw good men into his folly. If Ani falls, it falls. Goguryeo will endure elsewhere. For a long moment I stood there, seeing the man who had sent me on this mission, who had called my brother's death another man's sin, who had planted hate in me like a seed. And in that silence, I realized he had abandoned us all the moment Jupil was lost. I left without another word. I would return to Ani alone. By the time I reached the fortress, the mound kissed the walls. The miners' song had stopped. Their tunnels were silent graves. Yang gathered us in the courtyard, his face gray with exhaustion. They gave their lives to buy this hour, he said. Make it worth them. His hand shook slightly when he lifted the holy bow, an heirloom of kings, horn and sinew so taut it was said no man alive could bend it. He set it on the altar in the chapel, not claiming it, only promising that if the gods still looked at Ani, they would not let it rot in dust. Then the drums began. The Tang surged up their mound in waves, ladders slamming, bridges dropping. Ani stones screamed under the assault. Arrows fell like locusts. Fire pots burst against towers. We fought in smoke and blood, hacking on the walls until our arms were numb. And then, as the enemy crested, a horn sounded below. Our miners had left their last gift. With axes and torches, hidden men struck the wooden ribs. For a breath, nothing happened. Then the mound shuddered like a beast kicked in the belly. A roar like thunder cracked the sky as the earth itself collapsed forward. Tens of thousands of tons rolling down in a tide of dirt and broken timbers. Tang's soldiers were crushed under their own creation, buried alive in the ruin. The mounds face-built against Ani's walls, but not over them, leaving a slope of chaos now ours to hold. We seized it like wolves. Yang, pale and bleeding, shouted us down into the rubble, turning disaster into battleground. I carried the standard forward, planting it in the churned earth. Around me men screamed not in fear but fury, their blades rising and falling against Tang's soldiers scrambling in the wreckage. For the first time, I saw fear in Taizong's eyes. He hurled his full weight at us, every unit, every engine, his fury matched only by our desperation. The night burned with fire and cries, the walls trembling as if they too bled. We were starved, ragged, half-dead, but still we stood. At dawn, smoke draped our knee like mourning cloth. Supplies were gone. The cistern cracked. The walls gnawed to bone. Yang stood on the chapel steps, the holy bow in his hands. His eyes met mine, and I knew what he meant before he spoke. If Ani is to live, he said, one arrow must carry us further than all our swords. Dawn came thin and gray. The chapel smelled of smoke. Yang stood before the altar with the bow, the room packed with men who had lost brothers. He set the grip, pulled once, nothing. Again, nothing. A murmur moved through the room. He lowered the bow and steadied. We go to the wall, he said. If it won't bend for me, perhaps it will bend for Ani. At the rubble. Tang banners poured down the slope, drums hammering until the stone vibrated. We met them knee-deep in broken earth. I don't know when I lost a standard, only that my mouth tasted of ash. Boys who had never shaved set their feet and didn't run. Yang limped the parapet, blood seeping through his bandage. A stone bolt smashed the battlement at his feet and dropped him to one knee. He glanced toward the chapel, then to the Emperor's pavilion, white in the smoke. He looked at me. Bring it. I ran and brought the bow, heavy as a body, one hand on stone, one on horn. He waited until the shouting slid behind us and there was only blood in our ears. Name them, he said, the ones we carry. I said my brother's name. Posos, Becca's. Others rose from the wall. When the list grew too long, he fixed his grip and pulled. At first it was a tree lifting a mountain. The horn barely flexed. Tendons stood on his neck. He exhaled in a steady stream. The bow crept. A hush spread. The string kissed the knock. He didn't aim by sight so much as memory. The distances lived in his bones. He raised the bow until his shoulders shook and released. The arrow went ugly at first, skittering like a leaf. Then it found its line, and the day held its breath. It crossed rubble and ditch and slipped through a gap in the pavilion screens as if a door had opened. A shout, a flurry, a horse rearing. "'Tis I," someone breathed, and the shout became a riptide. The Emperor was down. Humiliation travels faster than fear. The Tang line wavered, then bent, then broke. Officers tried to weld it with swords. It didn't matter. The rumor that an old bow from a starving fortress had struck the son of heaven ran like lightning. Banners turned toward the river. We didn't chase far. We were too tired, too few. When the pavilion vanished, a sound rose from Ani unlike anything I'd heard. Relief so deep it put men on their knees. Taizong didn't die that day. He carried the wound away. Weeks later, word came that fever took him on the road. The proud head bandaged over an empty eye. No one cheered. We repaired the cistern. We counted our dead. We rebuilt the gate. Yang never claimed the bow. He set it back on the altar. It belonged to the hands that pulled it, he said, and I think he meant all of ours. The fields greened. Markets opened. Children learned again to play. I asked to be relieved of the standard. He refused. You carry it because you know what it costs to keep it standing. As for Yan, I did not return. I sent him one line. Ani is not stone. It is a promise that outlived your orders. Some nights I climb the parapet alone. I stand where the battlement broke and say the names again. The wind along the wall is the same wind that carried our arrow. It smells of iron and millet and rain.